Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another one of my evening live streams where myself and a number of Iranians watch a documentary about Iran, and then we provide our comments and feedback. So the last time we left off, it was a documentary that was actually produced in 1974. I will provide the YouTube link and page afterwards because it is publicly available on YouTube. And we got about halfway through. And then once we got to the Mossadegh era, and of course the so-called 1953 coup, which wasn't actually a coup, for some reason the video went down due to a so-called copyright notice. Although that live stream is now back up, so part one of this live stream is there, and as I recall, we were at about a 9 out of 10 for this documentary. So we're gonna pick up where we left off. I just fast forwarded, not fast forward. I went ahead just a little bit to make sure that, I guess we're out of like that Mossadegh phase era. So let's see how this goes. We're going to try to watch the remainder of the documentary. There's about 30 minutes left. And again, I will provide the full link to the video in the description, and also, of course, give a final rating out of 10. I believe the reason that myself and the Iranians in the chat, we were at a 9 is because the documentary still did sort of, even though it was in the 1970s, so it was filmed prior to the Islamic Republic taking over Iran, they still referred to 1953 as a coup, which it wasn't. So to me, that was very bizarre. So it almost seems like even in the early to mid 70s, these non-Iranian, journalists and documentary filmmakers or whatever, they were already starting to buy into the Islamist and communist narrative about 1953. And then, of course, that eventually gained traction, and that's what led to the 1979 Islamic coup d'etat. All right, guys, so let's continue. Of course, special shout out to the mods and all the members here. Thank you for being here, and thank you for joining me.
The reform is bitterly opposed by the landlords and parts of the clergy, assisted by the extreme left.
Okay, so the reform that we're referring to here. Okay, I'll see if I can go back a little bit, and maybe we won't hit the copyright notice. So the reform that they're referring to here is the land reforms of the Shah at the time, who was basically getting rid of the feudal system and basically eliminating serfdom. So that's what they're referring to with the land reforms, right? The Shah was basically getting rid of that feudalism, and he was empowering poor people in Iran by giving them plots of land.
The crowd will shout, "God bless you," with a
Okay, let's go back.
marriage to the Shah will not produce an heir to the throne.
Okay, oh, all right.
Intervenes. He is
Okay, no, you want to go past Mossadegh. All right.
but the old system of concessions definitely is abolished. For the first time in her modern history, Iran is now sovereign in every field. And for the first time in
So just to roughly place this for you guys in the timeline, we're somewhere around 1953, 1954.
her relations with Great Britain, as here on the occasion of a state visit to London, Iran is treated as an equal sovereign power. In his new role, state visit of the Shah and his then wife Soraya to Russia, the other world power which intervenes so often in Persian affairs. Talks with the communists. Talks with the Pope. In her long history, Iran has always had an outstanding tradition of tolerance toward other religious groups. Representatives of the powers with whom the country will be linked more and more economically come to Iran. Eisenhower.
Was that an American flag, guys? Did you see that? Wait, let's go back a little bit. I think that was an American flag. Oh.
Talks with the Pope. In her long history, Iran has always had an outstanding tradition of tolerance toward other religious groups.
See, did you hear that, guys? So in 1974, this narrator is basically saying that Iran has a long history of religious tolerance, right? Because it goes back to our Zoroastrian roots, and it goes back to, of course, Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Persian Empire. And, you know, within the Cyrus cylinder, he basically said, you know, he basically created the concept of freedom of religion. So this notion of religious tolerance actually started with the Persian civilization. And it was only when the Islamic Republic took over in 1979 that they then started persecuting all of the religious minorities. And that's why, you know, Iran was incredibly religiously diverse. And, you know, it's Iranians themselves still are, but many of those religious minorities had to escape, right? And so that's why, you know, as Iranians, we have Iranian Muslims, Iranian Christians, Iranian Jews, Iranian Zoroastrians, Iranian Baha'i, you know, everything. And again, prior to 1979, all Iranians, regardless of their religious affiliation, were treated equally. And it was only when Islam took over in 1979 and imposed Sharia law that the religious minorities, you know, including the Jews and the Baha'is, were heavily persecuted. Welcome, Ike. Okay, so this is, do you see that American flag in the left of the screen there? So like this is in Tehran, right? And you can clearly see the American flags there. So again, anyone who tells you that you know, Iran and America are enemies, it's completely false. Iran has always been an ally of the United States. We Iranians continue to be allies of the United States and Americans. It's the Islamic Republic and their, you know, Sharia law, 7th century anti-imperialist ideology that is the enemy of the United States, right?
Representatives of the powers with whom the country will be linked more and more economically come to Iran. Eisenhower from the United States. Chancellor Adenauer from the Federal Republic of Germany. On this occasion, Soraya, partly of German descent, is interpreting. Her marriage to the Shah will not produce an heir to the throne, vital for the dynasty, and they'll be divorced shortly. Germany is to become Iran's second greatest trading partner in the years to come. Hamburg Harbor. The policy of independence and self-reliance requires know-how and modern equipment. Learning and purchasing abroad, as at Stuttgart in the Mercedes plant, which eventually will become partly Persian property when the oil boom for the first time makes possible Iranian investments abroad. On December 21st, 1959, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi is married to Farah Diba.
So Farah Diba, or the Shahbanu, she is the current Empress of Iran, and she just turned 87 last month, and we love her.
In Tehran streets, bands play. Among Persian marches, the Kankan from Offenbach's Paris Life. A splendid wedding, but the departure for the royal honeymoon will be delayed. Political tension at the Iraqi-Iranian frontier. When they finally leave Tehran, the crowd will shout, "God bless you," with a son. Ten months later, a son is born to the royal couple, vital for the dynasty.
So the son that they're speaking about, he is the current Shah in exile, Reza Shah II. If you watched my live stream from earlier today, you know, during my sort of like regular daily broadcast, I actually played an interview that he had just a few months ago. So you definitely want to make sure that you watch that as well.
Iran's monarchy, for the stability of the country, an heir to the throne, Reza. To celebrate the event, the Shah orders 2 holidays for the whole country. We are abolishing the notion of plowboy and make him a free farmer. In January 1963, the Shah, the revolutionary operating from the throne, announces his program of social reforms. In the first place, land reform. The crown land has been distributed already.
So did you hear that? So as part of his, land reform, the Shah literally gave away land that belonged to him, and he gave it to the Iranian people. What sort of authoritarian dictator does that, guys? What sort of dictator gives away his own land and his own property for free to the Iranian people to empower them, right? Pay attention to this, because it's actually so right now they're talking about the White Revolution. So, they're in the early 60s right now. The White Revolution is what really pissed off the communists and the Islamists, which then led to, them mobilizing to overthrow the Shah, right?
Now the big estates of the landlords are to be included in the program. Land for the landless. The reform is bitterly opposed by the landlords and parts of the clergy, assisted by the extreme left.
See, so the extreme, and that's the weird part here. So the Shah was literally giving land to people, and the communists were pissed off, right? Wouldn't you think that the communists would supposedly support this? But again, it just goes to show you communism, socialism, Marxism, the extreme left, it's a corrupt ideology. They don't actually care about helping people or empowering people. All they care about is control, right? And you can already see this unholy alliance between the red and the black. So the Shah's land reforms, which were meant to empower people and get rid of that, feudal landlord system where they basically had serfs and slaves, the Shah got rid of all of that. And who did that piss off? It pissed off the landlords, it pissed off the communists, and it pissed off the Islamic clerics, right? The clerics also did not like the fact that the Shah was empowering people. And once again, like make sure you pay attention to how people dressed. Anyone who tells you that Iran is like an Islamic country, and that Islam is a part of our culture, literally knows nothing about Iran. Yes, at that time, many were religious, but the religious ideology was not a part of our culture or identity. It's just something that people practiced at home. Nowadays, right after 47 years of Islamic occupation, less than 30% of Iranians are actually Muslim. The vast majority are, in fact, atheist or agnostic. But back then, Iran, the vast majority of Iranians did practice, Islam, but it was more of like a secular form of Islam. And as you can tell, it had no impact on how people looked or dressed or behaved. It was only when the Islamic Republic took over and imposed Sharia law that all of a sudden they began this fake propaganda of how Iranians are, Islamic or, whatever nonsense, right? And basically erasing the identity of all of the other Iranians who had practiced different faiths and religions for thousands of years, right?
The most fanatic resistance is delivered by a number of clergymen against the voting right for women. Essentially,
did you hear that? Did you hear that? So the Islamic clergy did not like the fact that the Shah of Iran was giving women the right to vote in 1963. Again, ask yourselves, if the Shah was supposedly this authoritarian dictator, which the communists and the Islamists love to put out there, why was he giving women the right to vote in 1963? Does that sound like a dictator to you? Of course not. It's the Islamists and the communists who are lying. All they do is lie. And the reason that they did not like the fact that the Shah was giving women the right to vote is because, according to the Islamic clergy, it goes against their Sharia law, right? Like giving women the right to vote was an insult to Allah and Muhammad and Islam. And they viewed the Shah as being anti-Islamic for giving women the right to vote. This is why Sharia law is an evil, backwards, 7th century misogynistic ideology. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Sharia law is evil. Sharia law is barbaric. It has no place in civilized, 20th century society, 21st century society. Let's go back because I want you guys to hear this part again. Pay attention to what he's about to say.
The most fanatic resistance is delivered by a number of clergymen against the voting right for women, essential part of the revolution from the throne.
Like, why do these Islamic clergymen even care? Like, what is it to them? Do you see how like savage and barbaric their ideology is, right? Like the Shah of Iran gave women the right to vote, and the Islamic clergy are upset because apparently that's an insult to Allah and Muhammad, right? Women having the right to vote is an insult to Allah. Keep that in mind when someone says to you that like women have rights under Islam. Not under Sharia law, they don't. No. Reform Islam, sure. If modernized version of Islam, sure, I guess, because at that point they're not following the Quran by the book, right? But if you actually go and you want to follow like, Islam to the T, there's no rights for women there. And that's why the Islamic clergy were upset that the Shah was going against Islam by giving women the right to vote. That's why the Islamic clergy were upset. And this is back in 1963, right? So, and then based on that, that's when they started their, campaign to try and, basically portray the Shah as this authoritarian dictator Why did they call him an authoritarian dictator? Because he went against Islam and he gave women the right to vote, right? Think about that. And unfortunately, their lies and their taqiyya was fueled by the communists and the Soviets, funded by, by the communists, which was funded by the Soviet bloc at the time. And so all of this disinformation you hear today about the Shah, 100% fabricated, because when you look at the facts and when you watch old documentaries like this one from 1974, you hear the truth about what actually happened.
Yet the program is carried through. Women not only vote, but are elected as members of parliament as well as of the Senate.
Whoa! If the Shah was a dictator, how the heck did women even get elected? What were they being elected for? Do you guys see the BS behind this modern day narrative about Iran being this authoritarian dictatorship under the Shah? 100% a lie, 100% false. Guys, let's watch this again. Like, this is wild.
The most fanatic resistance is delivered by a number of clergymen against the voting right for women, essential part of the revolution from the throne. Yet the program is carried through. Women not only vote, but are elected as members of parliament as well as of the Senate.
It speaks for itself.
Symbol of the new role of women in Muslim Iran is the active participation of Farah, the Shah Banu, in representing the dynasty, the state. She's in charge of whole sectors of national life, particularly in the fields of social activities, art, and culture. Between 1964 and 1976, the number of children in primary schools has risen from 1.7 million to 4.1 million. In high schools, from 326,000 to almost 2 million. Of 152,000 students in higher education, about 1/3 are women. In 1975, at Tehran University, 44% of all graduates in medicine were women.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? This is what pissed off the Islamic clerics, right? The fact that the Shah, not only did he give women the right to vote, he was empowering women. He was building a system that would empower women. And in fact, women before 1979 were not allowed to get married until they turned 18. Okay, so before 1979, when the Shah was in power, women had to be 18 before they could get married. And in fact, women, were encouraged by the Shah to go to school, get an education, and then go get a higher education as well. And as you can see, by 1975, 44% of graduates were women. When the Islamic Republic took over in 1979, one of the first things that the Islamic clergy did is they lowered the age of marriage to 13. Think about that. One of the priorities for the Islamic regime was to encourage child marriage. That is how savage and, barbaric these Islamic clerics are that are currently governing the country, right? Like, one of their priorities was encouraging child brides, like the sick perverts that they are, right? Why? Because according to their Islamic ideology, the purpose of a woman is to basically, serve men, right? They didn't like the fact that women were being educated. They didn't like the fact that women were in politics. They didn't like the fact that women were given the right to vote. Their perverted, priority was lowering the age of marriage so that it, aligned with their Islamic Sharia law. That's how disgusting these people are, guys.
47% in pharmacology as well as in social sciences, and 55% in education.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? So the number of women graduating from post-secondary education with post-secondary education degrees was more than men, 55% of women in 1975. That's how modern the Shah of Iran was.
In 1980, Iran is to host the next grand conference of the world's universities.
We never did. We were supposed to, but we never did because the Islamic Republic took over in 1979 and turned our country into a 7th century Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law. But this is how advanced we were. The Shah was already planning for the future. And it's a shame.
The basis for such achievements, the Literacy Corps. Founded to fight illiteracy, it's performing the most peaceful task armed forces could fulfill. Thousands of soldiers, after 4 months of initial training, are sent out to the most remote villages. When the Shah People's Revolution begins, illiteracy in Iran is about 85%.
Did you hear that? The Shah literally employed Iranians to go and fight illiteracy, right? He called them the Literacy Corps. People who are literally paid by the state to go out and fight illiteracy. Does that sound like the actions of an authoritarian dictator? Generally speaking, authoritarian dictators want people to be uneducated, want them to be impoverished, want them to just, go about their daily lives. He was a man who was forward thinking. He was modern. He wanted to modernize Iran. He was on the path of turning Iran into a first world country. Iran could have been the next Singapore or the next South Korea or the next Japan of the Middle East. Instead, thanks to the Islamic regime and the communists, Iran has become the North Korea of the Middle East. Think about that, guys.
فندق بسیار قشنگ است. تهران شهر بزرگی است. خب حالا چی درس یاد گرفت؟ نه درس یاد گرفت درس بمونه. تو یاد گرفتی؟ هیچ یاد گرفته؟ خیلی خوب. تو باش.
Look at all these kids, are literally these are all kids in rural villages, right? Where their parents can't read, their parents can't read. And by the way, remember, these are most likely those rural villages where these poor people were the serfs of the feudal landlords, right? So not only did the Shah of Iran free these people, empower them, give them their own land, their own property so that they could, work for themselves and build a better lives for themselves. He also provided, he was building 4,000 schools a year and, providing everyone with publicly funded education in order to combat illiteracy. So these kids who are learning how to read, I guarantee you their parents don't know how to read, their grandparents don't know how to read. But the Shah of Iran recognized how important education and literacy is to the success of a country. And so one of his priorities was combating illiteracy. And that's why you see these rural children in the poor, impoverished areas of Iran learning how to read in government-funded schools. I'm not gonna lie, those videos remind me of me when I was a kid and I was learning Farsi as well, or learning Persian. We would do the same thing. We would have these books and we would read. So kind of gives me memories of that.
To bring progress to a country like this is a giant task. Nature has built barriers everywhere. The land is virtually torn by its bizarre geological formations, by ranks of jagged mountains springing abruptly from the plains, by the spectacular folding of the rocks. For its major part, the country, high and dry, seems to be barren and almost devoid of life. From the southern regions burnt by the scorching sun, the Trans-Iranian Railway provides one of the few connections to the Caspian littoral in the north, where rainfall reaches 60 inches per year. Yet, as everywhere in Iran, most of the country's 60,000 villages are isolated from the outside world, the greater part of them strewn over Iran's high plateau and mountains. Thousands of years, the peasants have been living like this. To introduce the 20th century here requires ingenious and specifically Iranian methods. The province of Gilan, bordering the Caspian Sea, is one of the richest agricultural areas. But even here, many of the villages are almost inaccessible. The inhabitants celebrate the appearance of a helicopter with an impromptu dance.
That's actually really Guys, I also want you to pay attention to the outfits. So the people in rural areas, they wear traditional outfits, but as you can tell, it's all colorful, different styles, different variations. You don't see, women wearing like the black blankets that make them look like walking trash cans, right? That only happened after the Islamic Republic took over and basically forced Iranian women to cover themselves from head to toe in black shrouds. As you can tell, prior to Sharia law being implemented, Iranian women were free to dress however they wanted to dress. And, some dressed incredibly modern, some dressed, more traditional. And women, the important thing is women were free to choose how they wanted to dress. That choice was taken away from them when the Islamic Republic took over in 1979 and brought their 7th century Sharia law ideology with them.
The nomadic tribes, the Kurds, Lurs, Bakhtiari, Kashkoi, Baluchis, Turkomans, 1/10 of the population, wandering from south to north, from north to south, present the utmost difficulty to systematic development. Their contribution to the country's animal husbandry is essential. But how, for instance, can the government introduce modern methods of sheep breeding or compulsory primary education in a tribe steadily on the move? What future under these circumstances do the children have? For the school problem, a solution was found. Since students from the regular universities could not stand the hardships of nomadic life, tribesmen were trained at special faculties. They are wandering with the tribes, teaching 70,000 children a year in Iran's mobile schools.
Do you see that? So, the Shah even found a way to educate nomadic tribes in Iran without impacting their way of life, right? So again, how was he an authoritarian dictator? He was literally respecting people's way of life, but he was still finding ways to implement his policy of mandatory public education. So instead of like forcing children to go to school, he sent educators to go and live with them and educate the children on the move. Like, how ingenious is that, guys? You never hear about this stuff in documentaries today, because everyone wants to paint the Shah as this authoritarian dictator. Again, does any of this point to an authoritarian dictatorship to you guys? Do you now, like, are you starting to see the pattern of how the Islamists and the communists have been continuously lying to you, and everything that you think you know about Iran, the history of Iran and the Shah is pretty much a lie? I'm loving this documentary. Like, I'm pretty much at like a 9.5 out of 10 for this. I would even say a 9.9 at this point.
The schools of the White Tents. A health corps team. Medical school graduates serve an 18-month term in often remote rural districts after an initial military medical training of 6 months. Thanks to their help, infant mortality in rural areas has been reduced by half within 10 years. Top priority is given to family planning. Iran has one of the highest population growth rates in the world, over 3% a year. The Extension and Development Corps is the third branch of the Army's Revolutionary Corps as part of the Social Reform Program. Its task, rebuilding and modernizing the countryside, teaching the farmers new methods. In 10 years, a total of 28,000 men and women have performed this task, while 120,000 belong to the Literacy Corps and 13,000 to the Health Corps. Among other activities, the Development Corps has set up model farms on 250,000 hectares. But what has become of the revolution's prime target, the land reform, after the first 12 years? How many Iranians are living on the land, and how are they living? In the Ministry of Agriculture, Secretary of State Gravamian answers.
I should say that the total number of the peasants in the farms have been 75% of the total population in the country, and it has been reduced to 50% during this period, and the target is to be reduced to 25% in future. The holding of land by these people ranges between 0.5 to 2.5 hectares, which is not enough for someone to live for a family. And that is why in the farm cooperatives this has been increased to something about 7 to 10 hectares per family.
Did you hear that? So again, like, the Shah of Iran is recognizing that people need land. So they're increasing the amount of land they're giving to people in order to bring them up out of poverty. And this was upsetting the Islamic clergy.
And the average earning of the farmers have been less than or around $100 per capita per year. And now we have increased these to something about $1,000.
Did you hear that? So they even increased the earnings of farmers. Okay, so this is how much they were helping farmers come out of poverty. Their initial, capita per earning was $100. They increased that to $1,000. So from 100 to 1,000. The Shah was literally bringing the entire country out of poverty, modernizing the country. The Islamic clergy didn't like that. The communists didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that the Shah was modernizing the country through capitalism, through secularism, right? That anti-imperialist narrative, unfortunately, won over in 1979. But just listen to this, guys. Like this is the kind of stuff you will never hear about in those documentaries that are produced by Islamic regime terrorists, by the communists and by their supporters, right?
Of course, this figure cannot be compared with $2,200 per capita in the town and or average
Okay, let's go back
for the
here.
country. 2.5 hectares, which is not enough for someone to live for a family. And that is why in the farm cooperatives this has been increased to something about 7 to 10 hectares per family. And the average earning of the farmers have been less than or around $100 per capita per year. And now we have increased these to something about $1,000. Of course, this figure cannot be compared with $2,200 per capita in the town and or average for the country. And we have to increase these, and this is one of our problems in the country.
The main problem is shortage of water. To be exact, it's shortage of water at the right times and in the right places. Mountain snow provides the main source of water in Iran. In spring, the mountains are barren of vegetation and the water runs off them too fast. Floods result in over-irrigation, which means more erosion and salinization of the soil. Within a few weeks, the land is dried out again. Iran covers about 1.6 million square kilometers. However, about 1/3 of this huge area is mountainous. Another third is desert and steppes. And the remaining third is forest and sparse pasture land.
Yeah, a lot of people think that Iran is just like a desert. It's actually not. There's a lot of forest there.
Only 8.2% is cultivated. As one of the main remedies, huge dams have been built in order to prevent floods and store water for irrigation. 15 big dams will eventually make possible cultivation of an area totaling 1 million hectares, formerly desert. But land reform and irrigation alone are not sufficient. The small holdings are too small to provide a living. The answer is larger units of production. The Aryamer Farm Corporation in Persepolis in the province of Fars, the center of ancient Persia, is a model corporation. The director, an agricultural engineer, explains the system. The Aryamer Farm Corporation was the first of its kind to be founded in the province of Fars in 1968. This corporation has 80 member families, each of them holding 25 equal shares. The 1,700 hectares being cultivated by the farm corporation formerly belonged to one landlord. Under the land reform laws, they were handed over to the peasants. Although the problems of the advanced countries still seem rather remote, planners at the top level already are aware of them. What will the farmers, the laborers do with rising incomes? How will they spend their money? As the director reports, at Aryamer, the farmers' incomes are already...
Oh, someone's asking about the name of the documentary. Guys, I mentioned it before, but here, let me pull it up for you guys. So the documentary is publicly available on YouTube. Okay. I'll bring it up for you here. I will post the link to the documentary as well after I'm done the live stream. But the documentary is called Iran Under the Pahlavi Dynasty, The Heirs of Cyrus the Great. Full documentary, 1974. So this is the documentary. It's publicly available on YouTube. As of right now, I'm giving this documentary like a 9.5 out of 10. because it does give an amazing, amazing, information about Iran prior to 1979. So I would highly encourage everyone to watch this documentary. This is just the second half of this live stream. We live streamed this documentary, the first half of it last week. So now we're just finishing it up. But that is the name of the documentary. Again, I will post the link in the YouTube description below after I am done this live stream. All right, let us continue.
As high as they were before the corporation was established. In addition to the...
I mean, I didn't even know that the Shah had started a co-op at the site of Persepolis. So, guys, like, the Shah was even trying to revive Persepolis, and the Islamic Republic didn't like that, right? The Islamic Republic didn't like that. Why? Because Persepolis is a pre-Islamic thing. And the Shah was very much about promoting Iran and Iranian identity and Cyrus the Great. That pissed off the Islamic clergy because for them, everything is about Islam and Muhammad and Allah and, Arabs and all that like jihadi nonsense, right? They don't like the fact that Iran has existed for thousands of years prior to Islam. In fact, one of the things they tried to do when they took over Iran in 1979, some of them actually tried to destroy Persepolis. And it was only because Iranians went and stopped them that they weren't able to bulldoze Persepolis, because otherwise they just wanted to destroy Persepolis. Like, that's how evil these Islamic clerics are. But you can see that, when these Islamic fanatics took over in Afghanistan and in Iraq, they went and they systematically destroyed all of the, pre-Islamic statues and, whatever that they had, right? Because they were all viewed as like, haram or whatever nonsense, right?
Their better earnings, members of the corporation are cared for in many ways. Name, Halvan. Age, 35. Father's name, Sipansa. Medical care through the Health Corps girl is free. And there are other welfare...
Wow, they even had free medical care, right? What sort of authoritarian provides free medical care?
Institutions not known in the old villages, enticing peasants to join a cooperative or corporation. For instance, the kindergarten. In Iran, where family ties are stronger than in Western countries, kindergartens are in their initial stage yet. But with the rapid growth of the number of women working outside the house, more kindergartens will be needed. Free kindergarten and school meals are part of a welfare and social security system which is meant to eventually embrace all Iranians, laborers and employees as well as self-employed persons. It's interesting to note that the social insurance premium is 30% of the earnings, of which 20% is paid by the employer, 3% by the government, and 7% by the employee. For medical treatment, the employee pays a franchise of 20%. For hospital bills, 10%. He has free choice of his doctor or hospital.
Again, like, this woman, like, she would fit into any like Western European country, right? So again, pay attention to how Iranians dressed before 1979. Anyone who tells you that like we're, Islamic or, Islamic culture or values, they either know nothing about Iran, they're not Iranian, or they're just lying to your face, right? Like, this is what Iranians used to look like prior to 1979, before Sharia law was imposed on us.
The daily prayer. We thank our God who gave us peace. We pray for Iran, a cradle of peace, and for our kind King of Kings, that he should live forever. We pray that Father remains healthy. If he is healthy, Mother will be at peace. We shall learn to read and write and serve Iran, thanks to our God.
This is so cute. That was really cute.
Iran's farmers have increased output considerably, but food consumption has been rising at the rate of 10% a year, with growing incomes and with a steadily growing population. So in spite of tremendous efforts, the country, self-sufficient in food in the early 1960s, had to pay $1.4 billion in 1975 for food imports. As in most developing countries, population growth surpasses production increase. 2,500 years ago, the Persians, under Cyrus the Great, built the world's first imperial power. It stretched from the Bosporus to the Indus, from Jerusalem to the Aral Sea. In the following half-century, Cyrus's successors extended the empire still farther, to Libya and Macedonia, and to the mouth of the Indus. One of the ironies of history, the original kingdom of Cyrus covered roughly the same area as the countries of today's CENTO Defense Treaty members, Iran, Turkey, and Pakistan. The Iran of today still is so big in total area that there would be room for nearly all the 9 countries of the European community: West Germany, Denmark, France, Ireland, Britain, the Benelux, and Italy.
I just want to point out something about the Shah's coronation. So the Shah actually ascended the throne in 1941. He did not have his coronation until 1967. So he literally waited 26 years from the day he ascended the throne until the day he had his official coronation. And the reason he waited 26 years is because when he ascended the throne in 1941, he made a promise to the people of Iran. He said that I will not officially crown myself and have my coronation ceremony until I have first served my country, until I have given back to my country, until I have made sure that my country is well off and developing. There is no other monarch in history who has done that. I mean, for example, look at King Charles, right? King Charles, when he ascended the throne, he had his coronation ceremony 1 year after, right? But the Shah of Iran, he waited 26 years because he put his country first, he put his people first, and he wanted to make sure that his country is thriving before he did that. And no one ever talks about that.
October 28, 1967, 26 years after Mohammad Reza Shah had ascended to the throne.
I just said that, guys. I should make my own documentary about Iran. 26 years after, right? Let's go back, pay attention to this, right? He waited 26 years because he wanted to make sure his country was developing. He wanted to make sure Iran was on the path to modernization before he officially coronated himself.
October 28, 1967, 26 years after Mohammad Reza Shah had ascended to the throne, the official coronation takes place. Why so late? The Shah had said repeatedly that he didn't find any glory in being king over millions of poverty-stricken and disease-ridden people. So he didn't want the coronation before his social revolution had had its first clear successes.
I told you guys.
A unique event. For the first time in over 1,000 years, an empress is crowned in Persia, the Shahbanu Farah. She will be regent in case the Shah...
So that also pissed off the Islamic clerics, right? The clerics did not like the fact that the Shah had officially crowned an empress of Iran who could stand in his place, right? Because again, you know, having a woman as a leader was an affront to Islam and Allah and Muhammad. So pay attention to this, guys, okay? Pay attention, right? What sort of authoritarian dictator would empower women? The Islamic clergy didn't like the fact that we had an official empress of Iran, right? Because that goes against their Islamic Sharia law 7th century ideology.
October 28, 1967. 26 years after Mohammad Reza Shah had ascended to the throne, the official coronation takes place. Why so late? The Shah had said repeatedly that he didn't find any glory in being king over millions of poverty-stricken and disease-ridden people. So he didn't want the coronation before his social revolution had had its first clear successes.
You'll never hear that. You'll never hear that in current narratives.
A unique event. For the first time in over 1,000 years, an empress is crowned in Persia, the Shahbanu Farah. She will be regent in case the Shah and Shah should die before Crown Prince Reza comes of age.
And that pissed off the Islamic clergy. They did not like the fact that a woman was gaining power, because that goes against their 7th century barbaric ideology of like Allah and Islam and Sharia law and whatever.
This again symbolizes one of the most important and radical changes in the social structure of Iran: equal rights for women.
Equal rights for women. That pissed off the Islamic clergy. They did not like the fact that the Shah had institutionalized equal rights for women. Some people are commenting about the music in the background. The music is not Islamic. The music is not Muslim. It's purely Iranian. There's nothing Islamic or Muslim about what they're singing. They're not even singing in Arabic. They're singing in Persian, which is the language that we speak, also known as Farsi in our own language.
In an age when so many monarchies perish, Iran still adheres to her constitutionalist traditions. With the oldest constitution in all Asia, she still remains.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? How could we be an authoritarian dictatorship if we had a constitution? Guys, remember, anyone who says that Iran was a dictatorship under the Shah either does not know our history or is lying, because you have to go back and look at Iran from 1905 to 1911 when the Persian constitutional revolution happened. And again, one of the previous documentaries that we live streamed on my channel, which is included in this playlist, is about the Persian constitutional revolution of 1905 to 1911. So again, we were a constitutional monarchy. The Islamists and communists are lying about what Iran was prior to 1979, because that's how they justify overthrowing the Shah and turning Iran into the 7th century Islamic hellhole that it is today.
A monarchy. This ancient land's armed forces today are continually equipped with the latest weapons. Iran's military strength has aroused suspicion even in the West. It should be remembered, however, that Iran again and again in her history has been unable to resist so many foreign invasions because of her military weakness. The Shah, here with Egypt's Sadat, has learned his lesson. Reinforcement of Iran's military power is meant to assure peace in the Gulf region. Vital for the Western world. Through the lifeline of the Persian Gulf, more than half of the oil imports of Western Europe, 80% of most African states, 90% of Japan, 60% of Australia is being transported. If only a single tanker would be sunk in the Strait of Hormuz, this lifeline could be cut. Oil, the basis of Iran's wealth. The oil boom offering new opportunities, new challenges for the country's development, and new dangers. The oil story, the story of a miracle. But Iran's oil reserves are limited. Estimates vary between 20 and 30 years. So it's understandable that the country's ruler is in a hurry to carry through his development programs. Did Iran, this laboratory of the developing world, jump too fast from the Middle Ages into the 20th century? Inevitably, there are drawbacks when too many things have to be done too quickly. But the reasoning behind this haste is clear. The Shah expressed it when he told laborers that in 30 years' time, their industrial exports must compete with those of other advanced countries. Otherwise, it would be impossible to maintain the present standard of living. With the newly gained electric energy, industrialization is accelerated rapidly. The first nuclear reactors are being built by the Germans with a view toward a future without oil. Steel mills built by the Russians, partly in exchange for delivery of natural gas to the Soviet Union. Iran possesses some of the largest natural gas fields in the world, besides commercial quantities of coal and many minerals. Iranian assembly and manufacturing plants already produce the greater part of all motor vehicles now needed in the country. With so many ambitious projects, there is a continuous shortage of manpower. To close the gap, women are encouraged to take jobs, and with high wages and the industrial boom, they respond in ever-increasing numbers. With so much money pouring into the country, rising prices cannot be avoided. But wages in industry go up at a higher rate.
Like, we were literally on our way to becoming like the Japan of the Middle East before the Islamic regime and the communists took over and turned the country into a 7th century Islamic hellhole, right? I mean, like watching this stuff, it's nice, but it also makes me like a little bit depressed, and it makes me go like, what the hell were people thinking in 1979, right? Like, what the hell were you thinking, guys? This is also something I want to show you guys, right? So look at like these women. Some of them are wearing hijab and some are not. So again, you know, that's another lie, right? Like the Islamists like to say that the Shah banned the hijab. Another flat out lie, right? He didn't ban the hijab. He actually gave women the right to choose whether or not to wear the hijab. And that was an affront to the Islamic regime clerics, right? Like the Islamic clerics didn't like the fact that Iranian women did not have to wear the hijab. And it's something that actually exists to this day. Like, let me show you guys something. Like, this is how backwards and demonic and evil these Islamic regime clerics are. Like, when I tell you that the fact that the Shah gave women the right to vote, the Shah gave women equal rights, the Shah said that women don't have to cover themselves with Islamic hijab if they don't want to, that upset the clergy. I'm not joking, guys. I'm not joking. This is what the this is the news that literally came out today. So let me put this in context for you, okay? There's currently a water shortage inside of occupied Iran, right? There's a water shortage, and you literally have Islamic regime clerics today, okay, today in November of 2025, who are blaming hijab enforcement failure for record-breaking water crisis. So these are the savage 7th century Islamic clerics who took the country hostage in 1979. Iran is currently undergoing a water crisis due to their mismanagement. And what do? They blame the water crisis on women not covering their hair properly. Do you see the nonsense that we have to deal with? Like, do you see the radical, jihadi, 7th century Islamic Sharia law that we Iranians have to deal with? Where the people who are in control are blaming water shortages on women showing their hair. I wish I was joking, but I'm not. This is literally what is happening in Iran right now, but you will not hear this in the media. You will not hear this in the news. Again, the Islamic regime clerics, right? Like these are the men of God. These are the men who worship Allah and Muhammad and Islam. And according to their 7th century Islamic Sharia law, the reason that there is a water shortage in Iran is because women are not covering their hair properly. Think about that. Think about that. These are the people who claim that the Shah was a dictator. Do you see the level of nonsense that we Iranians have to deal with? Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
The Shah People's Revolution lays much emphasis on reforms in the industrial and social field. The Shah and Shah addressing workers.
برای بار دوم در بزرگداشت روز
It is for the second time.
Chilo, I know you're saying this sarcastically, but I just have to share this. So hijabs are the way to good agriculture. How could they leave that out of environmental science? Right? I mean, again, like this is the nonsense that we Iranians have to deal with, right? Like when we say that the Islamic Republic is a 7th century jihadi ideology, we're not exaggerating, guys. We're not exaggerating. The Islamic clerics are literally claiming that the reason there's a water shortage is because Iranian women aren't wearing proper hijab. You're right. Maybe they should include that in environmental sciences, right? Enforcement of Islamic hijab is critical to, ensuring proper agriculture. I don't know. It's ridiculous what we have to deal with.
That I join you on.
And the other thing as well is that, like, if we didn't have documentary evidence of the absolute insane things that the Islamic regime says, the insane things that these Islamic clerics say, if we didn't have documentary evidence of this, no one would believe us. That's the thing. No one would believe us because they would just assume that we're making it up. Meanwhile, we've literally dealt with these 7th century savages for the last 47 years, and they've been murdering us in the name of Allah and Islam, and yet somehow we're the ones who are Islamophobic for calling out their jihadi nonsense, right? Like, make it make sense. It's wild.
Labor Day. One of the points of the revolution is a profit-sharing system for workers and the introduction of ownership participation. Eventually, 49% of the shares of private enterprises will be offered to employees, workers, and the general public. Crown Prince Reza handing out certificates and decorating vocational trainees. What will their future be? Will the change of attitudes, of traditional behavior prevailing for 1,000 years be quick and radical enough to transform their country overnight? The solutions offered by the Shah People's Revolution seem to be better suited to Iran's needs than any other existing model, be it in East or West. Might Iran's way even become an example for other nations? What has been achieved up to now is astounding, but the challenge is a giant one.
So guys, this is the 2,500 celebration of the birth of Iran. I actually did an entire live stream on this, so make sure you can find it in the same playlist here. But like this was a phenomenal event. Iran was celebrating 2,500 years of the Persian Empire. And again, this celebration also pissed off the Islamic regime because, the Iranian, our Iranian identity and civilization has absolutely nothing to do with Islam. And because this was pre-Islamic, the Islamic clergy tried to paint this as like, an anti-Islam thing. So I have a whole documentary, I have a whole live stream where I go through this. So make sure you go and you watch that because I explain this in detail. And I also explain how this was probably one of the best investments that the Shah of Iran could do to put Iran on the map and to boost hospitality and tourism and culture, right? So this was critical, a critical part of the Shah's plan in terms of modernizing Iran and putting Iran on the map. And, every single country has a budget that they spend on heritage, tourism, and culture, right? Guys, I was a politician for 7 years in Canada, and, we always have a budget for these sorts of things. But the Islamic clerics didn't like the fact that the Shah was honoring the Iranian heritage of the country because, of course, for them, everything is about Islam and Muhammad and Allah, right? But this was fantastic. So you're about to get a glimpse of pre-Islamic Iran and the three people down below that you see in the red outfits. So they're wearing outfits from the time of Cyrus the Great. I love this. I love this. Never get tired of watching this documentary.
In 1971, Iran celebrates her 2,500th birthday as a nation, as a state, and as a monarchy, the oldest monarchy in the world with the youngest dynasty. But looking back to the empire of Cyrus, of Darius, of Xerxes, a cultural tradition older than that of the Greeks. Darius and Artaxerxes freed the Jews from Babylonian captivity. The Achaemenid dynasty created the first commonwealth of nations. It was a blending of the civilizations of the ancient world. Mesopotamia, Egypt, Syria, Asia Minor, the Greek cities, and even India into one original whole.
I love how you describe this part.
Hegel once wrote, "The principle of development begins with the history of Persia. This constitutes strictly the beginning of world history, the first world empire, and, still more noteworthy, a form of government which for the first time in history on so large a scale was animated by a genuine spirit of justice and tolerance for all, regardless of race, color, and creed."
Did you hear that, guys? So 2,500 years ago, before Islam was even invented, we had freedom of religion, freedom of association in Iran, in Persia, in the Persian Empire. And it was only when, the Islamic conquest of 650 happened that all of that was gone, right? But no one ever talks about that. No one ever talks about the Muslim conquest of Persia. No one ever talks about how Arabic colonization is probably like one of the worst things to ever happen in the history of human civilization. So that's the tomb of Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Persian Empire. And that's Persepolis, the ancient city of Iran.
The hearts of the Persians are still in the ruins of Persepolis, the ancient capital built in 520 BC by Darius, 230 years later burned by Alexander of Macedonia. Darius the Great, the King of Kings. The ancient inscriptions in which the kings tell the story of their empire. In the treasury nearby, thousands of tablets were found giving detailed accounts of wages and working conditions, revealing the first social system in history and the attention already paid to human rights.
By the way, guys, if in case you didn't know, and you can look this up, women in ancient Persia, 2,500 years ago, they got maternity leave. Yeah. If you were a woman in ancient Persia and you got pregnant, and if you were working, you actually got paid. You got paid for maternity leave. And in fact, the state actually paid above your wage, right? So whatever you were earning, your maternity leave pay was actually higher because the state actually recognized the importance of, women giving birth and contributing to society. So 2,500 years ago, the Persian Empire gave women maternity leave. And then Islam came in 650 AD and turned women into second-class citizens and pretty much the property of men. Just food for thought, right? Just look it up. You don't have to believe me. Look it up. Google whether or not maternity leave existed 2,500 years ago in the Persian Empire. No other ancient civilization had paid maternity leave for women, but the Persians did.
The kings presenting their gifts to the King of Kings. Throughout the vast empire, a whole network of roads and communications was established. Fortresses and post stations for commerce and the imperial administration were built. Throughout the centuries, on the ruins of old towns, new ones were erected. And again, on the remnants of these, layer on layer, in this country so often invaded.
By the way, guys, a lot of people will try to tell you that this is like Islamic architecture. This is actually Iranian architecture, the geometric shapes that you find. There's absolutely nothing Islamic about this. And you find this, these designs and patterns and structures that existed before Islam was invented. But, just like everything else, the Arab colonizers tried to claim this as Islamic architecture, but it's not. You don't find this type of architecture anywhere else in the world, except for places that were built and populated by the Persian Empire. So just keep that in mind as well. There's nothing Islamic about this. It's 100% Persian. ancient version.
During these thousands of years, the Iranians were often conquered, yet never colonized. So they remained a proud people, conscious of their history.
Guys, that is so true. So we have been conquered, but never colonized. That's the difference. This is why our language goes back thousands of years. It's why our traditions go back thousands of years. It's why our identity goes back thousands of years, because we were conquered. You know, even the Muslim Arabs, they conquered us in 650 AD, but they were not able to colonize us. They weren't able to erase our Iranian identity or heritage or culture or even our language, right? They were never able to get rid of that.
Of their heritage.
I want to replay that because that is so important, and it's a critical line. It's critical what he says there.
Thousands of years.
Wait, let me go back just a few more seconds here.
During these thousands of years, the Iranians were often conquered, yet never colonized. So they remained a proud people, conscious of their history and of their heritage.
We're very proud. We're very proud of being Iranian.
Iran today. Women even playing soccer, symbol of a radical revolution against deep-rooted taboos, habits, prejudices.
So, Iran under the Shah, women played soccer. Iran today, under the Islamic Republic, women are not allowed in sports stadiums. Did you know that? Iranian women cannot even attend sporting matches because, according to the Islamic Republic, it is haram for Iranian women to go to a sports stadium. Yeah, that's how backwards and demonic and evil the Islamic regime is, and their evil 7th century Islamic ideology, where women are banned from attending sporting events because it is against Islam and Allah, according to them. Just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Iran today, a unique endeavor, a bloodless revolution without class struggle. Its objectives, free farmers, workers as co-owners of their factories, an all-embracing system of social security. Whether there will be, in the end, a newly structured society will depend on these Iranians, on the young.
Guys, I'm like, we're getting to the end of the documentary and I'm just getting goosebumps because, you know, these are images that you're seeing in 1974. And then literally like 5 years later, Sharia law takes over and takes the country back 1400 years overnight and turns the country into a 7th century Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law. And yeah, like it's wild. It's wild to me. And, I have spoken about the Islamic Revolution, or the Islamic coup d'etat, as I like to call it. I have spoken extensively about that. We have watched numerous documentaries about that, and I've gone through it in detail, as well as the Iranians and mods in the chat here as well. So if you want to learn more about what led to the Islamic coup d'etat of 1979, definitely go and watch those other um, documentaries and live streams in my playlist. This documentary is one that was filmed in 1974, and we are getting to the final few minutes here. But again, like, just this is giving me chills, because it's like you're watching a movie and something horrific is going to happen, and you want to stop it, like you want to scream and be like, guys, don't be idiots, like, just, you have no idea how good you have it. But yeah, it's this is hard. Like, as an Iranian, it's hard to watch this, to know that this is what we had, and this is where we were going, and then Islam and the communists won. And we've been in a nightmare ever since. We have been in a nightmare, and almost 3 million Iranians have been murdered. One of the mods mentioned in the comments just today, they found the bodies of, I think, 70 or 70 more innocent young Iranians, protesters who were demonstrating against the Islamic Republic, who had been missing for several years. Their bodies were just found, dumped in a river that had been dried up. 74. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. Anyways, let's finish watching here. But yeah. Wow. I am struggling right now to not say what I want to say in Farsi. But there's something that I want to say. خاک تو سر 57. واقعا لعنت به شما، خجالت بکشید. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say, because I could say more, but yeah. I would give this documentary a 9.9 out of 10. I would like to hear from the Iranians. I mean, at this point, like, I would the only reason I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is because when it comes to 1953, they still call it a coup d'etat, which is weird, because it wasn't a coup d'etat. And I've gone over that in previous documentaries. But I mean, this is probably, and we've seen a lot of terrible documentaries. I would probably give this, like, I don't know, a 9 or a 10. What do you guys? So for the Iranians who are watching, does this get a 9 or a 10? I mean, I think this gets a 10 out of 10. Like, I would strongly recommend everyone to watch this documentary. I'm going to put the link in the YouTube description, of course, so people can go and watch the original. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Yeah, Gandalf, I agree. Like, I think, okay, so John is saying a 10 out of 10. Gandalf is saying 10. Yeah. I mean, given the fact that, like, we have seen a lot of terrible ones, yeah, I think this is a 10 out of 10, because I think this accurately describes what Iran was like prior to 1979. I think this documentary should be mandatory watching for anyone who wants to comment on Iran or Iranian politics, right? Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thank you everyone for joining. I think we're going to give this one a 10 out of 10. And if you liked my live stream, make sure that you like and subscribe, especially on YouTube. And just wanted to also remind you all that if you are a beginner to Middle Eastern politics, and you want to learn more, I am actually writing a book. I'm pretty excited about this. It's my first book. So you can pre-order it on Amazon. The link is in the YouTube video description. It's also available if you're watching this live stream on X. The link is, in the comments below. And you can pre-order it. Guys, so I just want to be very clear. This book is not meant for experts on the Middle East, okay? So, if you're an expert on the Middle East, if you kind of understand all of these things, this book probably is not for you. This book is for people who really know nothing about the Middle East, but they hear a lot about it in the media or elsewhere, and they want to learn, but you're not quite sure where to go. And it all just seems really intimidating and like overwhelming, a lot of information to take in or whatever. This book is for people who just want sort of a casual introductory intro to the Middle East and what it's like. And it's based on my viral Iranian here videos. If you follow me on TikTok or on Instagram, you'll know what I'm talking about. My videos, my pro tip from an Iranian videos have hundreds of millions of views. They've been downloaded and shared millions of times. I've been told that I'm even viral in China, which is really interesting to me. But yeah, so if you're a beginner and you want to learn more about the Middle East, you're more than welcome to purchase my book. It's available for pre-order. It's coming out on December 7. So I am working on it in my spare time, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. Anyways, thank you everyone for joining. I will see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern for my regular daily live stream. And as always, guys, Payande Iran, Javid Shah.